Okay, so in this video, what we are going to do is we are going to see how we can handle more than million, 10 million, 100 million submissions. I mean, with this method uh, that we are going to go over in this video, I mean, you can handle as many submissions as possible until you run out of drive space, I guess. Um, So this is the form that I've created. It takes two questions, and as we know that, or we may not know, that Google Form, sorry, not Google Form, Google Sheets, can only take in 10 million cells. After that, it doesn't function really well. It crashes. Um, so if you have one column, then that means that you can have 10 million rows. If you have two columns, then you can have 5 million rows, I guess. And if you have 10 columns, then you can have 1 million rows, so on and so forth. I've also worked on forms that had 100 columns, not because there were 100 questions, but because there were so many sections that each submission would create 100 columns, would take 100 columns. So each submission would be like one row, and then uh, it would also be equal to 100 columns. So for example, we have two questions over here, and if I go ahead and link to this to the sheet and I create this sheet, the sheet will get created in this same folder that I have created here, 100 million submissions and 100 million submissions responses. So we have timestamp and like the two questions, right? So you can see that we have two questions in this form, and it is already creating three columns. So you can see that how your 10, like you just divide 10 million by this three columns, and that is the number of columns it can handle, a number of cells or number of rows it can handle. Let's just divide it actually. We have 10 million and let's divide it by 3, so it'll be 33. Yeah, it'll be 33 lakhs 33,333 rows approximately, right? And if you are using the form as a survey in multiple states, then you can easily hit 33,000 in just 3 days. So yeah, basically you can see this is what the form that we have. Now let's say if this form is going to be filled by 1 million people, we already know that this form can only take 33 lakh rows, or 3300,000 almost rows, but we want to take in 100 million submissions. So what are we going to do about it? Okay, so we are going to use Google App Scripts here, App Script here, sorry. So we come to our this responses sheet, and we click on extension over here and click on App Scripts. Okay, so this is our app script. Now let's name this as just so that it is in line with our Google form, 100 million submissions, and we rename this. So now our function, I'm gonna call it on form submit, because I want this to work on when the form gets submitted. You can name it anything, by the way, because we have to create a trigger anyway, and the trigger has to be whenever I click submit over here. So whenever somebody opens this form and clicks submit, whenever this button gets clicked, I want to have a trigger that it runs this function. So let's just go ahead and create a trigger. come to triggers, view dashboard, okay, add trigger. So I want this function to run. This is the only function that we have. We'll leave this as it is. Choose when deployment should run, which deployment should run, head, fine. Um, Select event source. So event source is spreadsheet only because we have written this code attached to our spreadsheet, and this is what our source of event is. But the type of event is on form submit, and so that's why like I've also named it this way so that it is in line with that and creates the least amount of confusion. And notify me immediately whenever something fails. Whenever my code fails, I want to be notified immediately. Okay, let's save this. This will take a few moments. I think it'll ask for okay, so I need to do this. Always allow pop-ups. So this is something that you have to make sure that you have to allow pop-ups from this website. Okay, so let's just do this again from spreadsheet and on form submit, notify me immediately. Now it'll ask for, I think, authorization. I need to authorize this script. Advanced. Whenever this happens, you click on advanced and you click this, allow, and this should do it. Yes, perfect. Okay, let's come here and see whether this worked or not. Now that our trigger is created, let's just review our trigger. So our trigger is that I want the event to be from spreadsheet, and the trigger should be on form submit, and the function I want to run is on form submit. So I can write anything inside this function now, right? Because I want this function to run. Let's wait for it to open. Maybe I'll have to refresh it. Yes, sometimes that happens on this. Okay, so let's create a variable to store a sum of two numbers. So let's call it sum, and let's just add 2 plus 6 and log this value, logger.log, and I want to log sum. Now if our trigger works fine, that means when I submit the form, this function will run, and in our execution logs we will have the value 8. 2 plus 6 equals 8. Hopefully it will run fine. Preview. What time of day it is? It's night. Pretty nocturnal over here. We select the date. We submit. Let's click submit, another response. Come here. Okay, so we have our first entry. Come here, executions. And you can see that it has logged 8. So that means our trigger is working fine. Now we can write our stuff in here. Okay, so now that it works fine, we can just go ahead and remove this, and let's reference our spreadsheet app and store it in sheet. Actually, let's just store the whole sheet in here. So spreadsheet app dot, we will see what methods are there. Get active spreadsheet, and you can read about this. Returns the currently active spreadsheet. So you want the currently active spreadsheet when the code is getting, when this code is getting executed, at that time the active spreadsheet is going to be this only. And then we want to get active sheet. So in this case, what we can do is, if you feel like, no, I do not want to get active sheet, so basically let's just first do this get active sheet. So let's say if we have created one more sheet over here and you're not confident that, okay, I have multiple sheets over here, I do not know which sheet will be the active sheet and which sheet the code is going to consider as active sheet. So let's just call it as log. Maybe I've created a log sheet where you maintain a log of something or something, or maybe it can also be um, calculations of some sort that you do over here, whatever, right? So in that case, you can actually specify the sheet that you want to get, and you can see by name get sheet. Oh no, get sheet by name. So you can give it a string, and that string should be the name of the spreadsheet. So this is the spreadsheet that I want, and I'll just paste it here. Okay, so this is spreadsheet that we have. Let's call it form responses sheet. Let's come down here, and whether this is right or not, let's log this value: second row, second column. So second row, second column, B2. Let's log this value and see whether we are on the correct sheet or not, correct worksheet or not. So let's do logger dot log, and we are in the form responses sheet dot get range. We first get range, and the range that we want to get is the row is number 2 and column is number 2. Okay, so 2, second row, second column, and I want to get the value, and the value I should get is night. Let's come here. Let's select day now, so that we know that this is this time we have selected day and we do not have any other night value in the sheet, so that we only have one night value, the range that we are getting the value from. And if our code is working fine, and if it is picking up the correct sheet, this one, then we should get in our execution logs night. So let's submit. My bad, I did not save the code, so I have to save the code first. But let's see whether it worked or not. Okay, the triggers. Okay, sorry, executions. Let's see. We got night. Okay, something went wrong. So this generally happens with apps script. Not the best or the most elegant solution, but it gets the job done. Okay, so yeah, night. So our code is working fine, and we can see that we have our second entry as this, but we got this value because this is what we asked for. So this is working really fine. Now what we can do is just delete this. Okay, so let's get our row count, because we want to count the rows, right? Because that will tell us how many submissions have happened. Each row equals one submission. So submission 1, submission 2. So total submissions 2, right? So each row, one row equals one submission. So that is why we need to have a row count. And to count the row, actually let's just use the camel case over here, row count. So to count the row, we will do a form responses sheet dot get last row and get last row. But as you know that the last row is number 3, but number 3 is not our submission number of submissions. Number of submissions are 2, because one column is your column header, right? So that is why we will subtract 1 from this, because then we will get the value 2 over here. So form responses dot sheet form responses sheet dot get last row, and last row is 3 minus 1 will give us 2, which is the number of submissions that we have, because we do not want to count this row. So that is why we will subtract 1 row. Okay, so we have the row count now. Now we want our data range, basically the range where we have data. So right now this is the range that we have data in, which is this, right? So A1 to C3. Okay, so we go from responses sheet dot get data range. There is a method get data range. Now what it will give you, it will give you a data range like this. Okay, you know what, let's just see what it gives us. It gives us a range, but we want the range to be as this, A1 colon C3. So let's see what we get right now if we do this. Logger dot log, and actually let's do 2 data ranges so that we can check both the things at the same time. Variable data range 2, and let's just select this thing and to get A1 notation, and let's log both these things and in a list. So data range 2, and let's see in both of these what are we getting as our log. Again, evening 6, submit. So now you can see that we have this. So now our data range is this, A1 to C4. Let's come here, executions. Okay, so see, the first one we just get range, but the second one is much more readable, A1 to C4, which is correct, A1 to C4, right? So that's why we will use the A1 notation method dot get A1 notation. Great. So now we have our data range. So now we know that in which range our data exists. Our data exists in this range with every submission. So if we submit the form once more, we'll have this row also occupied with data, and our data range will become this, A1 to C5, which is signified over here. Okay, now we want to read our data as well. So let's do variable data, and we want to get from responses sheet dot get range. We want to get the range, and what is the range that we want to get? The data range. And we want to get values because there will be multiple values, that's why we'll get multiple values. And let's see what our data is. Again, logger dot log data. Let's submit the form again. Day something submit response. And did I save the form this time? Yes, I did. Okay. So this is the data that we got, and we can see that we have the first row as headers, then second one, and actually, you know, there is a better way to do this. So you can see that this is list, right? This is a list of lists. So what we're going to do is basically, so you'll have data dot for each, and then you have a callback function, right? And it takes in values like this. So basically you take item and you take function, you give in it the item, and you call a function, and you just do logger dot log, and I want to log each item. And if everything I have written everything fine and correctly, then they should log each row separately. Okay, so let's select night. We have this submit. Let's come here, and we should have these 5 rows logged in our execution. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we need 6 logs basically. Let's come here, and this failed. Let's see why it failed. Item is not defined. Okay, so basically item is not defined because it's saying what is this item that we have here. Okay, so basically we need to do this for each. Let's look at for each, and in JavaScript, and we can look for it over here. And the syntax is for each current value. Oh, okay, so this is a mistake that I did, that I don't need to write item over here. I can just do the function and do the current value. I don't need index in array. Okay, great. So we do for each, and we just pass in a function. In this function we have the item, and we do logger.log, and we print this item. Okay, now if I had read that correctly, this should work fine. Submit. Now we should have 7 items logged over here. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is completed. Amazing. And we can see that it is still iterating in it. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you can see all of this. So you can see that this is our column header, timestamp, what time of the day is it, and what is the date. And you can see it is this thing, timestamp, what time of the day is it, what is the date. And then similarly the last one will be this, night and 8/7/2024, night and 7th of August and 2024. Great. So now we know that we are getting our data over here. We don't need this right now, so just comment it out. So we also have our data now, right? Also, what we are going to do is whenever our data crosses 5 million submissions, let's say, right, we want to create a new sheet and transfer all of this data into that new sheet, right? So that new sheet should also have the same name, but we will add the date to that name so that we know on which date that sheet was created. So let's get the file name as well. So file name is so our form responses sheet dot get name. This is the name that we'll get. So it will give us the name of this 100 million submissions responses. Now let's get in here and get today's date also, basically the day or the time when the code is getting executed. So new date. So basically it is a date constructor, and it creates the new date, and of course like it has a bunch of other things also that you can do in it. So you can give it the value, a number, and it can also specify hours, minutes, seconds, the format in which you want it. But we just want today's date, nothing else, so we'll just create new date. Now we want to put all of this in this folder, right? So basically any new sheet that gets created should get created in this same folder. So we will grab this folder ID as well. So let's take this and access this folder. So we have folder, and to access this, just like to access spreadsheet, we used spreadsheet app. This now we want to access drive, we will use drive app dot get folder by id, get folder by id, and I want this folder. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to check when my row count is 5 million, right? So when is my row 5 million? So when my row count is equal to 5 million, that is when I want to do something. Basically, that is when I want to create a new sheet. That is when I want to copy this, copy main sheets data into the new sheet, and I want to delete the data from the main sheet. So these are the few things that I want to do. And I also want to do another thing, that I want to create a log of this new sheet that got created. So create a log of the new sheets that are getting created. So for this log, let's say I add this here, let's call it log. And for this, what I want to do is I want to have a serial. Actually, we don't need a serial. We'll just do file name and the date on which it got created. So basically, I'm on file name and the date on which it got created. Let's wrap this, format this a bit. Okay. Now let's come here. Okay, let's just start from here. I want to create a new sheet whenever it is 5 million. Actually, let's do this. Whenever it is more than 9,999, basically. So that is what I want to do. Let me see whether this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, correct. Okay, now I want to create a new sheet. So what I will do is I will create a new sheet. So first, what will be the name of my new spreadsheet? New spread name. So the name of my new spreadsheet is file name. I want to use the same file name, and I want to add today's date after it, right? So that is what I want to do. Nothing fancy over here. Then I want to create a new spreadsheet. So new spread, and let's create spreadsheet app dot create. I want to create, and I want to create it with the name of new spread name. Now what I want to do is want to get the data range over here. So new spread. So in this new spread, because it is going to be completely new spreadsheet that got created, so there will be nothing in the data range, but you will see why it is important to get the data range. So let's get new spread data range, and I want to do it as new spread dot get data range, and I want to get A1 notation, and for the same reason that I mentioned above. Now what I want to do is I want to use this new spread. In this new spread, I want to get range. And what is the range that I want to get? The range that I want to get is the data range that I just secured. So new spread data range, and Then I want to set values. So I want to set multiple values, not just one, and the value should be equal to data, right? So basically I'm creating a new sheet. Okay, so basically let's put this over here, right? And this as well, because this is where it should be. Okay, so we have new spread data range and new spread dot get range. I want to set values, and the value should be equal to this data. So I'll just copy paste that. Okay, so now we have done two things. We have created a new sheet. We have copied the main sheet's data into the new sheet. Now what I want to do is I want to delete the data from the main sheet. So basically I'll first create a rows to delete. Right? How many rows do I want to delete? So I will use form responses sheet dot get range, data range dot get last row. Okay, so basically what we are getting from the data sheet, we are getting last row. Okay, so basically what I'm trying to do is from here I want to get the last row. So if 7 is my last row, this is the data that I want to delete, right? But you can see that I have already created this thing over here, right? But let's look at this in a while. Okay, let's just stay here for a while. That these are the rows that I want to delete. I want till row number 7 I want to delete everything, right? Now very simple thing, it's a form responses sheet dot delete rows, and it takes two things. From which row you want to delete. So from which row do I want to delete? I want to delete from the second row because I want to keep this, right? That's why. So I'll give it the second row, and what I want to do from here, I want to delete till 7. But as you know that I cannot use rows to delete, because rows to delete already has value that is equal to 7, right? So that means if we come here and if I show this again, what is this second thing? Second thing is how many rows do I want to delete. So if I give it rows to delete, that means I'm giving it the value 7 right now, right? Because I have 7 rows over here. But the thing is, I'm deleting from here. So then 7 will come here and it will become out of range, right? Because there is no data over here. So in that case, we want to do 7 minus 1, right? Because we want to delete 7 rows, but we want to start from the second row and we want to delete till 7th row. But because we are starting from one row below, like we're not starting from row number 1, we are starting from row number 2. So our final row to delete will come at row number 8, right? So that is why we'll subtract minus 1. And if you see, we have already done this over here. We get last row and we subtract minus 1. So we don't need this whole thing. We'll just do row count, because this is the rows that we are counting exactly for our data, right? So this is what we want to delete. Now the last thing that I want to do is I want to create a log of the new sheets, new spreads that are getting created. So for that, one, I need to access this sheet, and I want to access the last row which does not have data, and I want to paste the file name over here and date over here. Also, why not get the URL as well, so that we have our URLs also in one place, so we know that where the data is. Okay, so these are the three things that we want. We want the file, sorry, my bad. So we want the file name, which we already have. If you know that this is our file name, we already have the date. You can see that we already have the date. We need to get the URL of this new file. So let's get the URL of this new file. So we create variable new spread URL, and let's get the URL of this new spread.get URL. It's very nifty. Every method is already there. Okay, so now we have our URL as well. So we have all these three things available. Okay, now the only thing remains is to access this sheet. So let's just access this sheet as well. So let's do that here only. So variable log sheet, and we know that it exists in this sheet only. So we'll just copy this, and now we want to access the log sheet. Okay, so in this log sheet we will get the last row. So variable log last row, and log sheet dot get last row. Okay, so our last row is basically one only at this point, right? Okay, so we have our get last row as well. Now what we want to do is the values that we have to append. So as we saw earlier, that each row is a list, right? So if we have this much data, we will have a list of, actually, let's say if we have 3 rows worth of data, that means we will have one list that has 3 lists, one for each row. So it's a 2-dimensional list that we will have, right? So that is why we will get our data over here. So let's just first store the values that we want to append here. So variable list, actually row to append, row values to append. So the row values that we want to append, and like I said, so this is the whole data. In this data we want one row's value. So that is why it's a 2-dimensional list, 2-dimensional array. Okay, so the first thing was file name. Okay, great, file name. The second thing was URL. So URL, so we have new spread URL, and the last thing was date. So we have, oh my bad, today, right? This is something that we have now. Now what we want to do is append these values in here. Okay, so we want to use the log sheet. We want to get range, and the range that we want to get is so basically our last row is this, so we want last row plus 1. So it will be log last row plus 1. And from which column do we want to start? We want to start from the first column. First column. And the other thing that we want to do is number of rows. How many number of rows do we want to append? We want to append only one row. As you see that we only have one row's data. So if this is the full data. In this we have 1 row's worth of data. So we come here, and that's why we have only 1 row here. So if we look at this again, so the first thing that we gave it is the row from in which we want to append, row from which we want to start adding values. The second is the column from which we want to start adding values, which is this. So we do 1. Now it says number of rows. How many number of rows? How many rows do we want to append data? So we only want to do 1 at a time. So that is why 1. And now it says how many columns. So if you see that columns is basically equal to the length of this list, right? So basically it will become row values to append, and the 0th item is this list, this one from here till here, and the length of it. Okay, great. So if everything works fine, after 5 million submissions, our script should run. Let's save this. Our script should run and create a new sheet over here, delete the data from here, and paste the data into that new sheet that will get created over here, and create a log of this new sheet that got created right now, right? Okay, but 5 million submissions are too much to check right now, so let's just do it 2. That if it is more than 2, which it is right now, if you see that it is definitely more than 2, then if our row count is more than 2, then I want to do all of this. I want to create a new sheet. I want to copy main sheet's data into the new sheet. I want to delete the data from the main sheet. I want to create a log of the new spreads that are getting created. Okay, let's save this project, and hopefully this will run fine. Let's do this, submit, response. Let's come here. Is anything happening? Okay, so definitely we have failed somewhere. Let's see what the error is. Error: you do not have permission to call the Drive app. Required permission. Okay, so basically our code has not failed. It's just that we do not have the permission to get this drive folder from here. So let's just come here. Okay, so basically what I've done is I came to GCP, Google Cloud Platform, clicked here, clicked on console, and I searched for Drive, and you'll see Google Drive API. I select this. Okay. And I have enabled this. So so you can see that I've enabled API enabled. So when you will come here, you will see enable option here. You'll click it and you will also get API enabled. Okay, so now let's see whether this is working fine or not. Again, now that I've enabled the Drive API, submit, submit the response. Let's come here, and you can see that it has failed again. So there is Okay, again, I do not have this. So this is one thing that we tried. Let me try another thing now. Okay, while exploring, I also realized that I was not doing this one thing, that I am doing this, but I am not moving this new spreadsheet into this folder. So that is also something that we have to do. So into the new sheet and move the new sheet, new spread into the parent folder. So for this, what we have to do is we want to grab the file, not the sheet. So for that, we get the file. So to get the file, what we need to do is new spread. So this is a spreadsheet, but this is the file that we want to grab. So what we will do is we will go into the drive app dot get file. Actually, open by URL. Okay, I think the best way here would be to get the ID of the file first. So new spread file ID, and what we will do is new spread dot get ID. So now that we have the ID of this new file, what we will do is we will get the file new spread file, and we will go into our drive app. We will get file by ID, and the ID that we will use is new spread ID. New spread, oh my bad, new spread file ID. And now this is the file that we can move. We cannot do it there. That is why now you will see that new spread file dot, now you will get an option called move to, and we want to move it to folder. Okay, so this is something that we had to do. So this is the bit that is basically move the new spread into parent folder. So let's just first delete this. Okay, great. Okay, so the last thing that I can think I should do is, one, we are triggering the function from here, and maybe that can be the issue, that maybe this is outside of the scope of the function, or where we can call, from where we can call this. So let's run this function ourselves, right? So we are running this function, and basically let's just imagine that we have clicked submit over here, and we are running. Now we will get the, okay, now we're getting the authorization required. And okay, so as you can see that this is the thing that we were not getting from there, because that was outside of the scope of drive app, or from where we can call the drive app. So let's just first time run it from here. And if everything should be fine, we should get execution completed over here. So you can see that the number of rows in the data does not match the number of rows in the range. The data has 11, but the range has 1, and this is here. So number of rows we have 11. Okay, so we have number of rows 11, and here we have exactly, right? Because when you create a new sheet, and if you look here, so when you create a new sheet, and that new sheet got created somewhere, by the way, because what happened is, before reaching here, before it could move, it basically tried to do this, right? So basically what we should do is, let's move it first, so that we can at least see our sheet, right? So let's first move it. Let's run it again now. Let's run it. This way, at least we will get the new sheet into our folder over here, and then we can delete it. This error is still the same. Of course, we have not done anything to correct it. But let's see whether our file got moved over here. Yeah, as you can see that our file got moved over here. Until here, it is working fine, that we got the new name of the spreadsheet, and that new name of the spreadsheet got also set over here. So it got renamed with this new name that we decided over here. And we also moved it here, right? Now you can see that we are getting this range error. So basically in this new sheet, if you look over here, that we are getting the data range, which basically it says that, okay, I wanted 11 rows, but I only have one row over here, right? Nothing else. Because that is the last row, because it has no data over here, right? So that is the problem that we are running into. So let's just first delete this, because this sheet is not usable anymore. Okay, let's come here. Okay, I figured out something. Okay, maybe instead of passing on this thing, because if we get the A1 notation over here for the new sheet, which has no rows, no columns uh, filled, so that means we will get A1 only here, the first row and first column, right? Um which should be fine because we want to fill it there. So let's just do our A1 and then set values, and we want to set the data over there. And if it runs, and let's see if this works. Okay, so basically number of rows are not matching. Great. So in our current data we have 12 rows of data, which is this, and in our new sheet, because it has nothing, it has 0 rows of data. So in that case, what we can do, instead of using this A1 notation, why not just use the A1 notation of the original sheet, because this is equal to this, right? This will be equal to this thing, A1 to C12, and this is where we want to set the values, right? So let's just use this data range over here, and yeah, dot set values. Now if we run this, but first of all, did we create, yeah, we created another sheet this time. So let's just delete this and run this. Okay, I made a mistake again. Stop again. So we have another sheet over here. First just delete this. Okay, so the mistake is set values, and I need to pass in this data. Okay, let's run this now. Execution completed. Amazing. Wow. Okay, so now you can see that we have a new file, and you can see that this got emptied out. There's nothing over here. So that means we didn't even need this thing. So let's just comment it out. And let's look at this new sheet. It should have everything else. Yeah, so it has all the data now here. And our this log should also have this thing. So okay, so we didn't get this thing over here, which is slightly weird because we should have gotten this over here. Get range. Why didn't we get it? Because we did not do dot set values and rows, row values to append, right? So let's this. Okay, so now what we are going to do is basically move this back into our original sheet. Let's move this back into our original sheet over here. Okay. And um, delete this. Now let's do a form submission. Now, because we have the drive permission and we have figured out how to set these new values in the new sheet, and then move that sheet into the parent folder as well, and also to update the log. And now, if everything runs fine, we should have, after this submission, a new sheet created over here, which it did. And in this new sheet, we should have all the values. Amazing. In our original sheet, we want everything to be deleted. Amazing. And our log to be updated. Right? Great. Um, so there is this one error that we made this time, which is basically a file name, but we needed a new spread file name or new name, new spread name, new spread name, and that is why it got um, updated there incorrectly. But anyway, now that we have said that after 2 rows, if we cross more than 2 rows, we want to create a new sheet, move that new sheet into the parent folder, copy the content of this sheet, master sheet, to the new sheet, delete the data from the main sheet, and create a log of a new spread of the new spreads that are getting created, right? So let's just do this again. This time, this is submission 1. So now we have, just what's this? Now we have one submission, and this is perfectly fine, right? This is when we didn't want our code to run. Okay, submission 2, submit, and we got another, and yeah, great. We don't want our code to run again if it is the value of submissions is 2, the count of submissions is equal to 2, right? But if it is greater than 2, that is when we wanted to do all the things what we had programmed it for. So 19, we click submit, and you can see that we get this here, and yeah, it got deleted, and you will see that a new file got created, and this time we had improved, we had corrected the file name, so this is why we have the correct name over here. And great, this is what you can do. Anyway, so yeah, this is how you can handle any number of submissions. Right now we had it as 2, our threshold as 2, that anytime the number of submissions crosses, anytime we have more than 2 number of submissions or more than 2 submissions, that is when we want to create a new sheet, move the new spread into the parent folder, copy main sheet's data into the new sheet, delete the data from main sheet, and create a log of the new spreads that are created. You can and similarly you can have any number of threshold over here. Maybe you can have, I want it to be 5 million, or just to be safe, I want it to be 4 million, right? Anytime I have more than 4 million submissions, I want to empty this sheet so that it can take in more submissions, but I want to create one new sheet for each 4 million submissions. So this is how you can handle 100 million submissions. Okay, I hope this was useful. Anyway, if there are any other suggestions that you have, or any other things that you would want me to try, or any other problem that you're struggling with when it comes to this, you can please feel free to leave it on the comment, and yeah, I'll try to attempt it and create a video on it. Okay.